labor, isolate solidarity. Let's get together on Zoom, see into people's bedrooms. We're all voyeurs for free. Stay home for labor. And Crispin is your MC. Get used to the smell of your fragrant hand gel. Hands like an ancient mummy. I said stay home for labor. Wave your toilet rolls in the air real quick. Have a laugh, have a sup, keep your spirits up. 'Cause when this is all over, we've got some asses to kick. I said stay home.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats for Stay Home for Labour. Please welcome your host, Crispin Flintoff.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stay Home for Labour. I hope you're all having a fantastic week. And we've got a really busy show today. As usual, I've got so much to cram in that we've got to do it really quickly. But before we start, I want to just say, I've got this hat on, and I know people think I look like a fool, but the thing is, if you saw what was underneath it, you'd appreciate why I've got it on. And people have said I could cut my hair as well, but I cut my son's hair today. And I'd like you to see just how that came out for him. So prepare yourself for that. Yeah, he got his hair cut today. And if you imagine that frowny face he's got, that's not when he just looked at me and he thought, God, I wish you didn't do it. And the thing is, imagine what I do to my own hair. So that's why I haven't cut my hair. Anyway, look, I'll get on with the show. We've got a busy show. To start with, we're going to hear from we always start with music. And today we've got a great musician who's also a socialist, but also was part of the Corbyn campaign when we were trying to get Jeremy Corbyn to stay as leader in 2016. If you remember, there's a little coup going on there, and we did some shows, and she did some of those. And I am going to play her song, and then we're going to catch up with her. Hopefully she's at home somewhere. So listen to Fae Simon, and I'm going to play her song now.
Anything you want to be, or anyone, if you dare to dream. Oh, when you walk your road, be sure to take heed of the lessons learned, so you can be free. You're struggling inside your skin so that you can shine. You have a voice, you have a choice, but will you be on time? I'm struggling inside my skin so that I can shine. I have a voice, I have a choice. I see you, see, 'cause you are me. I know you know, 'cause you are me. From the stars to the depths of the sea, you are me. It's reality. You are everything to somebody. Please remember that, even if you cannot see. When you walk your road, don't step on me. I'll stand by you. on time. I'm struggling inside my skin so that I can shine. I have a voice, I have a choice. I see you see 'cause you are me. I know you know 'cause you are me. From the stars to the depths of the sea, you are me. It's reality. You are. You're struggling inside your skin so that you can shine. You have a voice, you have a choice, but will you be on time? I'm struggling inside my skin so that I can shine. I have a voice, I have a choice.
Hi, Faye.
Hello. Hi,
Oh,
everyone.
Good to see you.
It's great
How are
to
you-
see you.
how are you
It's great
doing?
to be here.
are you
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for playing my video.
No trouble. It's a great video, great song. And what have you been up to with lockdown? Because you can't do live gigs, but are you keeping busy?
I've been keeping very, very busy. And I just want to say to everybody who's actually in the chat right now, I really appreciate your comments. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate the music and being able to share the music with everybody. So thank you. So while I've been on lockdown, I have read 7 novels in 7 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my challenge to myself. So I did 7 novels in 7 weeks. So really, really pleased with that. Very proud of myself with my speed reading.
And have you been doing? You're a teacher as well. You do teaching. So
I'm a
you've
teacher.
been-
I'm a music teacher, music and singing for primary school and secondary school. So I've had a lot of prep work to do to get our online classes going, so that we were back at school technically on the 20th of April, which was my birthday. And I had to make sure all the lesson plans and all the resources were online and uploaded, ready to go. So everybody had their lessons ready to go from home on the 20th of April.
So it's amazing. You could do music lessons virtually, and
I know. I know.
But it's not going to be easy, is it, for the children coming back to school after all this?
Not at all. Not at all. It's going to be really difficult for them. And I'm a bit apprehensive about the plans that Boris has rolled out this week, because he wants the youngest to go back, which is reception and year 1. And then he wants year 6 to go back as well. And I teach year 6, and year 6 have got their SATs scheduled for May. So they're going to be stressed out going back. I think it would be quite a cool thing to do. Get them back in school and then test them all at the same time. I know that they prepped really hard, but right now they've been off for 7 weeks. So to then get them back in school, have them vulnerable, and then test them and stress them out on top of that, I think it'll be a really, really cruel thing to do, personally.
Yeah, well, we had a show about the education, and the teachers are all agreeing that children are under far too much stress. And,
Yeah,
and
that's way too much
seems
stress.
ridiculous. Now, I'm going to have to move on, because we did a show on Saturday that was supposed to be an hour and a half, and it ended up being 2.5 hours. So what happened is I get caught up in a conversation, and then I end up extending it by an hour. So I'm
Yes.
my conscience is prickling me, saying just get on with something else. But it's really nice to see you, and I hope you come back for
Thank
another
you.
another
Of
gig.
course, I will be back anytime you have me. And I agree with everybody in the comments. It's not right to send the kids back. Do not stress them out. And I really, really hope that we get to stay home with them and teach them from home as well, because it's social distancing does not work with children. It's just about works with humans, full stop. But children and children that young, they're going to struggle to do it. So
yeah. Oh well, that's definitely true. And you know, I hope we can keep you safe as well, if as a teacher.
yeah, exactly. Let's keep me safe too.
So are you going to watch the rest of the show?
Of course, I'm going to be tuned in.
And please feel free to, as you say, please feel free to chat, put comments in the chat if you've got anything to say.
I'm definitely going to have
everyone else
have
as well.
conversation. Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for having me, and I will be staying in the group as well. So I'll speak to you a little bit later. Thanks, Crispin.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Now, what's been going on with the Labour Party in the last few days is there's been a policy that was announced at the weekend, which has shocked a lot of people, which is saying that tenants who have not been able to pay their rent during lockdown should repay what's owed. Apparently, well, if you haven't earned anything, it must be difficult to pay anything you're owed. But anyway, they're supposed to pay the landlords for lockdown rent within 2 years, and this has caused a lot of outcry in the Labour Party. So I wanted to find out for today's show how it is to be a tenant facing up to lockdown, and then to find out that you may well be asked to pay back for rent that you couldn't pay anyway, on top of what you would have to do with a difficult situation in the next 2 years. So I'd like to speak to Amy in Barnet. Amy? Amy?
There you go. I couldn't unmute myself. I was waiting for you to unmute me.
Oh, you muted yourself. Oh, that was very...
I was automatically muted. Well, yeah, I'm in the Chipping Barnet CLP. I've rented my entire adult life. I've lived in Barnet since 2016. I have 3 children. Me and my husband, we live with our kids in a 2-bedroom, one first floor flat. So it's been quite hard during lockdown to have 3 children, age 7, 3 and 2, with no garden, and having to basically homeschool one, and kind of I've got work for my nursery one as well. So yeah, so obviously that aside, I mean, my husband's a key worker. He actually works for a supermarket. So we've been fortunate in the sense that our income hasn't changed. I've been talking with a lot of friends who are also renters to see what their perspective is. Like in my area, for example, a 2-bedroom is about £1,300 a month. Sorry, a 2-bedroom is 1,300, and a 3-bedroom is 1,700 a month. That's why we still live in a 2-bedroom, because our rent to go from where I think we're on 1,200 now, it would go up by so much money we couldn't afford it. I mean, I was looking at minimum wage if you work full time before tax and NI is about 1,360. Put that in perspective. So if that's your average rent, you already earn less than what your rent would be in this area anyway. So then to be on minimum wage, pay your rent, and then have to pay extra would literally be impossible. I mean, if you're a 2-parent family, or you are in a couple and you've got 2 incomes, it's probably more doable, but it's very discriminatory if you are a single person or a 1-parent family. So
what's the what the problem is with this policy that Labour's put forward is that people will be struggling to keep above water.
Of course.
And then they have this extra debt.
It's literally impossible. It's actually impossible. Most people I know who live in this area who are paying the rent that I'm paying and they're paying are literally living month to month. There is no way that you would even be able, you could do, but you and your kids wouldn't be able to eat, or you wouldn't be able to pay your gas and electricity. There would be at some point that there was something would have to give. There would be something you'd have to go without. And I'm not talking about luxuries. I'm literally talking about food, gas, electricity, traveling to work. I mean, my husband cycles because we couldn't afford for him to use public transport. So he cycled. And at one point he was working in Farringdon, and that was an hour cycle there and back every day because we couldn't afford £300 a month for travel on like the tube. What's annoyed me about this whole situation is there's been no consultation with members, but there's been consultation with landlord associations. And for me as a renter, I've been renting now for over 10 years, and every step of the way, I personally feel like tenants have been basically second. Even when it comes to going to a letting agency and trying to find a property, they're constantly telling you don't earn enough, that the landlord doesn't want to take people on housing benefits. Constantly what the landlord wants, what the landlord needs, putting them first. And what's actually really disappointing from the Labour Party, I've been a member since 2016, but I've always voted Labour. What's really disappointing is that they haven't really consulted or listened to the Renters Union or other charities, but they're listening to the landlord associations. And I don't understand why as tenants. I mean, I was talking to a friend about this today. So if a landlord has a mortgage holiday and we're still paying them rent, because obviously I wouldn't know whether or not my landlord, for example, is taking a mortgage holiday. I mean, what happens to that money? And also for me, I mean, I saw in April that Keir launched Call Keir, and I quote, "Coronavirus is the biggest crisis our country has faced in a generation. That is why I want to hear directly from people about their experiences, how they are coping, and what more they want to see done to keep people safe and well." So he's put that in April. And yet, no, I haven't been consulted on this. My opinion, it hasn't been asked for. It doesn't seem valid. I mean, I spoke to a friend today.
Can I just interrupt you, because I'm wary about the time. As I say, I tend to get things over going to over an hour. But I just wanted to bring in another voice of someone who's a renter, who's in Manchester, and has actually lost her work, so is on universal credit. So this is Lydia.
Hi everyone. As Crispin says, so I'm a private renter like Amy, and a member of Acorn, and because of coronavirus lost my job. I think just quickly, something you said, Amy, about how even if people do find themselves able to pay rent, either through housing benefit or other means, what we're seeing, and I'm in this position myself, is people having to make massive sacrifices in other areas. For example, I've got a lot of council tax payments which are not happening. People are increasingly using food banks, etc. But just to quickly explain my situation, because I think that all this stuff is connected. The reason I am struggling to pay rent at the moment is because I lost my job, and that is because of the kind of contract I was on, and that is because of the kind of the problems with the furlough scheme, which is another area where I don't think the current Labour leadership has been strong enough. But I'll come on to that. So, I am a teaching assistant, but I don't know if people are aware on this call, but so local supply pools have been privatised, which means that often supply teachers or teaching assistants will be employed by a private company on very precarious contracts, and then the school will pay that agency, and the agency will take a cut. And so not only does this mean that our wages are low and that it costs the school a lot, but it means that our employment status is extremely precarious. So before the lockdown even happened, we were organising our trade union to try and retain pay, and have struggled to do so. Okay, I'm rambling now.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah, jump in.
You told me you're on universal credit. Now, you've been on universal credit for how long now?
Since late March.
I'm not from the department, by the way. I'm not.
I know you're not. From late March, yeah.
Late March. So what you said to me earlier was that there was a kind of freeze on asking people to look for work for, during the
this is
lockdown.
key.
And then you notice something has changed a little bit, but it's just a feeling you've got about it. Would you like to explain what you've witnessed on that?
Yeah, so this is one of the main reasons why it is paramount that rents are cancelled and that people don't go into further debt by paying them back, as Labour's current policy will do, because I believe that the need to pay rent, the fear of eviction in a month's time if you don't pay rent, potentially will force people back into unsafe work. So something, as Crispin said, that has been appearing in our universal credit journals is this question which asks, are you ready to go back to work? And this wasn't there at the start of the lockdown. Now, given Boris Johnson's most recent announcement that basically if people can, they should be encouraged to go back to work, it is looking like potentially the freeze on universal credit sanctions, so they suspended the need to search for work in order to receive payment. It is looking like potentially they will reverse that, and so people on universal credit, on housing benefit, will again be forced to find work again, even though we've got the highest death toll in Europe, as you all know. So I think that, I want to make really clear that while the situation is terrifying and desperate, it isn't, there isn't nothing you can do. So just for example, like even though the furlough scheme is fully at the employer's discretion, so they can choose whether or not they want to furlough you, because in my trade union we group together people in a certain agency, we've managed to push them to get closer to furloughing us. And that's the reason that's the reason I'm in Acorn as a renter, and that's the reason I'd say anyone on this call who is a private tenant to join unions like Acorn, London Renters Union, Living Rent in Scotland. There's probably others that I don't know, but basically there isn't nothing that can be done. And these unions are preparing for the months ahead when evictions are looking more likely and But obviously it is paramount that our Labour Party stands with us, and that's why it is Acorn's position that rents should be cancelled and they should not be a burden on the already huge amounts of debt that people are going into.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Lydia, for that, and good luck as well. And Lauren is from
Hi.
Acorn in Sheffield. Can you hear me, Lauren?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Right. I can. Yeah. Good to see you. Tell us what Acorn's position is on this, because we've heard that the Labour Party didn't consult Acorn on this idea, this policy of tenants paying back 2 years after lockdown. Why didn't they consult you? Have they talked to you Have they talked to you since? Is there any sign that they may change their mind? What's your feeling on all this?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. So yeah, we had a meeting with Thangam Debonair yesterday, the Shadow Secretary for Housing, to discuss a few issues around housing, but primarily this rent arrears problem. It is the first time we've been in contact with her since she's taken up the role. It is a conversation that we hope will be ongoing in the future. And yeah, we're not delighted about the policy, to say the least.
Yeah, and do you did she give you any sign that they might change, she might change the policy, or?
We were told that the policy was basically consistent with what was in place when she took the role, so it predated her. We have been told there will be future announcements from her office regarding rent, but nothing concrete around what that will be, which from our standpoint just isn't good enough. Like, as Amy and Lydia have already expressed, like, we are seeing these issues come up every single day across the country. We have branches in 19 cities now. We're getting people coming to us through our coronavirus community support network. We're having people come to us from member defence cases, people who have lost their income, people who can't pay their rent, or more frequently, people who are having to pick between putting food on the table or paying their rent. And as this moves forward, putting people into increased amounts of debt, and crucially putting the most vulnerable people, the poorest people, into increased amounts of debt, it's not a sustainable model. And I think the sort of question at the heart of it is, who pays? Is it the wealthy or is it the poor? Who takes the biggest hit in a crisis? And why is it that people who are already the most vulnerable, who are being forced back into work under unsafe conditions, who are forced to be paying rent when they're already losing income, why is this the situation? It wouldn't be surprising from the Tories, but why is this a position that Labour is backing?
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask our special guest today what he feels about this. I haven't spoken to him about this. I've just asked if he'd appear on the show. John.
Hi.
Let
me go through what Amy and Lydia and Lauren have raised, because this is a really serious issue. In the meeting, what Lauren has said is, in the meeting with Thangham, she said that her policy was consistent with Labour Party policy. I'll invite people to Google Jeremy Corbyn. This was way back in our early submissions to the government on the COVID crisis. And Jeremy wrote and called upon the government to suspend home rental fees during the coronavirus crisis. And we were supporting the suspension of rents. That was existing policy. The second thing, if you recall, we'd also put in our manifesto and been campaigning on it for rent controls overall. And actually, to give him his due, the London mayor, Sadiq Khan, actually, when it was envisaged there'd be his election this year, he actually made rent controls as the central tenet of his campaign. We were surprised at that, because up until then he'd been sort of lukewarm, but he actually recognised the housing crisis we were facing in London, and he called for the rent control. So we were completely consistent. There we were. We campaigned for rent controls because the crisis that renters were facing, not just in London, but across the country. Sadiq Khan backed us on that. Then when we went into the crisis, we called for the suspension of rents. That was the policy. So I'm quite disappointed at the way in which the Labour Party policy has moved. Now, I've expressed that view publicly, as of a number of other MPs. And I think what we have to do now is impress upon Keir and Thangham and others that actually this policy won't wash. And I tell you why. In my constituency, let's compare prices, shall we? Let's compare rents. In my constituency, Hayes and Harlington, it's a working class, multicultural community in West London, north of Heathrow. For a house, so a 3-bedroom house, you're now talking about at least £1,600, £1,700 a month. And in fact, those property prices are increasing all the time. The rental prices are increasing all the time. We have a massive housing shortage, and we have speculative developments going on because Crossrail is going through, land prices are going up. So we have large numbers of now, largely buy-to-let landlords who are buying up properties. Often they're foreign companies as well. And actually it even pays them just to leave the property empty, because the value of the property goes up anyway. They still earn a large, significant financial gain from it. So that's why we were arguing for rent controls, a levy on the overseas property owners, so that we could then invest that money in building more homes. And then when the crisis occurred, suspension of rents. What will happen on this existing policy? The argument that's been put forward is there's a 5-point plan, but the key element of it is that if renters will be given over a 2-year period to pay off the debt that they will incur as a result of not being able to pay the rent, whilst many of them are not working, or even if they're furloughed, 80% of their income. Well, to be frank, all that does for many of my constituents, it just puts off the eviction, because the landlords will come at a later date. They'll land them with a bill which they can't meet. And you know, it's all well and good saying you've got over 2 years to pay it off. But a lot of people at the moment, a lot of people are paying about 40 to 50% of their income on rent alone. and many of them on incredibly low earnings. And if you're on a 0-hour contract at the moment, or if you're in a sector like hospitality, where it's going to be very difficult to see people getting back to work soon, debts will mount up, and they'll escalate to such an extent that no matter how long you give people in the next couple of years, it's difficult to see people being able to pay those off. But also, I just bring this other factor in, which needs to be taken into account. You can imagine what the stress and worry is placed upon people's shoulders who are incurring debt in that way. Worried that, oh, I've got to pay it off at some stage, but also worried that they've got to put food on the plates for their children. They've got to somehow survive during this period. And I think it's building, we've got a mental health crisis building up on our hands at the moment, and this adds to that additional stress and the mental health problems that people will face. That's why we were quite clear we wanted a suspension of rents. Now we can argue, we can have a discussion about how that's paid for. Is that paid for by the state? Just as the same way at the moment, the state is providing direct grants, not just loans, but direct grants to businesses at the moment. Is it paid for in that way? Therefore, the burden is shared right the way across the whole country. Or is it paid by landlords, or is it paid by a combination of the two? That's the sort of debate we should be having, not whether or not we're not suspending rents, getting rid of them for that period whilst the crisis has been hit. It's about whether who should pay for it and how, what's the fairest way of doing that. And that could be through increased taxation. It could be a levy on the wealthier landlords or whatever. That is a discussion to be had. So I'm disappointed, and I know there's a build-up within the Labour Party now of MPs and constituency party members and others to say to the party leadership they need to think this policy again, because the people out there are really struggling. And as I say, it's building a real worrying. I think it's a real worry for many people, and we need to take into a much broader framework in how we deal with this matter. So I'm urging people. If you're a party member, by all means, start lobbying now. Start lobbying your local Labour MP if you've got one, or start raising it at your constituency party, or start emailing Thangham and Keir as well, and trying to get us build up as a bigger lobby as we possibly can. I support what Acorn are doing as a union is fantastic. I support the London Renters Union. They put out a fantastic statement, which many of us signed yesterday. So I think the pressure is building. And I think there's a good opportunity we can turn this policy around, but it's absolutely critical for people's living standards. And as I say, for many people, their mental health as well, because of the stress they're under. So that's where we're at, Crispin, on that particular issue.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I see this as going against what was built up in the last 4 years with anti-austerity. I mean, using an argument that we can't afford it sounds very retro to me. It sounds like something I might have heard from Ed Balls or someone in the Ed Miliband team. So I think it's great that you're saying that there are MPs who are opposing it, and you're advising us to lobby. And I think that's what we should all do, because we don't know how bad this is going to get for people, and to put debt on top of that is just, like you say, it will cause a mental health problem. I mean,
we've had a meeting of the Socialist Campaign group of MPs tonight. There are about 35 present. That's where I've just come from, and this is one of the key discussions. And that group of MPs is now mobilising to ensure that we build up more support. It's not a matter of, there's no row or anything like that. What we're trying to do is just say this policy it's ineffectual, it's counterproductive, it flies in the face of all the commitments we've given. And the party leadership now needs to think again. I think we'll have overwhelming support for that, both in the party, amongst our trade unions, amongst others as well. The other issue as well, is the point that Amy raised. My understanding is there was consultation with the Landlords Association, but there wasn't consultation with the key Acorn, the Renters Union, or others. That should never happen again. That's inappropriate. Now, again, might be wrong, but that's my understanding of it. And so again, part of the issue that we're raising is we've got to be completely open and transparent and talk to those people who are at the front line of any individual policy, who it will impact upon the most. And I'm hoping that lesson has been learned now, especially as Acorn has had the meeting with Thangham, and you can build up, hopefully, some form of continuing dialogue. But we've got to say to the Labour Party leadership, as you develop policy, you've got to talk to people who these policies most affect.
Well, thank you very much, John. I could talk to you much longer, but there's other things on, and really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
One final point before I go, Crispin. Can I just raise this point? I'm sorry to interrupt again. Last night, there was a report that came out into the Telegraph today. I don't know whether people saw it. It's classic what the Tories are doing, particularly Rishi Sunak. They brief a section of the media on a policy to see how far they can go. And then, depending on the public reaction, they'll implement it or not, or they'll go some way. Last night, the briefing went into the Telegraph that because of the build-up of potential debt as a result of the COVID crisis, they're looking at another wave of austerity. And it was about pay freezes for 3 years in the public sector. So the very nurses and public sector workers we clap on Thursday, the government wants to reward them with a pay freeze, cuts in public services, the scrapping of the triple lock protections on pensions, and a whole range of other issues as well. Now, I think what that was them testing the water to see whether or not there's going to be opposition to that. And if there's limited opposition, they'll run with some elements of this. What we've got to do now is take it seriously and go for it and start condemning it and making it clear now we wouldn't tolerate that. The country won't tolerate us having to go into austerity to pay for this crisis again. And I end it there, Crispin. Okay.
Well, I think we need to make sure the Labour Party opposes it as well. Thank you very much, John. We're now going to have our Labour Leaks update with Pamela. And are you there, Pamela?
I am, thank you, Crispin. But first of all, thank you for pushing this item on, the rent item on, as an issue, because I think, you know, in my day job, I work in a law centre in Harrow, and this is an issue that we deal with all the time. People in private rented tenancies losing their home, and even before COVID, what we would see regularly are the rents are higher than the level of wages and benefits. So people are going without food, are going without heating regularly. So the thought that people can repay something in the future is ridiculous notion. So I hope the lobby will work and that Acorn and everybody else will kind of have some success in that. So well done. So in terms of
the leaks.
The leaks.
Yeah, tell us about the leaks.
So the Labour leaks. So since I was last on, you'll be surprised perhaps to hear nothing's happened, no change. I have been talking to quite a lot of members though, and have been invited to some branches and talk to members who all say the same thing. They're absolutely distraught at what has happened, but even more distraught that nothing has been done in the party in terms of suspensions. And of course, I've said before, I'm a manager. If this had happened in somewhere I work, then, you know, action would have been taken. And that's the kind of normal response from people. This wouldn't happen in my workplace. Why is it treated as though it's normal in the Labour Party? So what's happened from that is there's been a bit of a push to ensure that the Labour Party changes, and the way that that starts, obviously, we have a vacancy for the General Secretary at the moment. And so what's happened is I've had a bit of a campaign to push me to stand for the General Secretary position. Today I have put in an application and will be standing to secure the position of General Secretary. Now, I'm not under any illusions that I would be the favoured choice for this position. However, there has to be some change. There has to be somebody who recognises that it is not normal in a workplace for such abuse to go on, and that it's not normal for people who work for your organisation to try to undermine it and see you fail. But it's even more unusual for that to happen in a political party. So there has to be some change. So I was delighted, Crispin, that you gave me the opportunity that I could announce on your show that I'm standing to be General Secretary, and I'll do all I can to get the position, and if I get it, all I can to change the Labour Party into a place that is a functional working place. Because You know, I stood in 2019 in the general election. We lost, and there's a variety of reasons we lost in the constituency I stood in. But the overwhelming reason, I believe, is because we're a divided party. We cannot win. Any trade unionist knows that in order to succeed, you've got to be united. And how can you be united when the very people who work for us are undermining us? And this culture, I have to say, it hasn't gone. I know we're talking about a report that goes back some years, but this culture still exists. It exists in CLPs, it exists in some parts of head office. So that's my news. Nothing really has changed on Labour leaks, but yeah,
that's
where we are.
that's big news to keep us occupied, and we'll support you. I'm sure we'll have you on every show, and we'll keep plugging away. When is the actual decision made for that?
Well, it seems to have changed, because initially it's been a very kind of rushed process, which is very odd for one of the most senior positions within the Labour Party. It was advertised about a week ago with a deadline for the 14th, and apparently a decision to be made on the 19th.
Wow.
I noticed last night that the deadline has been extended to the 18th of May, but there's no indication. I mean, the whole process is very odd. I mean, I advertise jobs regularly and recruit people, and you would normally put down a reasonable period for people to apply, have the date of interviews and the date of kind of process for decision, but none of that seems to exist in the Labour Party. So it's kind of wanting to just wake people up, shake people up to say this doesn't go on in the real world. And unless we bring Labour into the real world, I can't see how we're ever going to govern this world. So
no,
that's
I don't want to talk too long, because we've got other things to do. But I did read that in one article it said that they pass it from the GMB to Unison to Unite as some sort of it's your turn next. And I don't really think that's the best way to try and win an election or take over. You know, it's really
it's bizarre, isn't it? It doesn't happen anywhere else. So yeah, so that's my news, and I'll let you know what happens if I get shortlisted or anything else. So
well, yeah.
Thank
So
you for your support.
We'll see you again for an update, and
Okay.
we'll try and get a team to support you and promote your campaign. Thank
Brilliant.
you, Pamela.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm now going to speak to. We've got a surprise guest, a late addition to the lineup. We have the new General Secretary of the Bakers Union, Sarah.
Hi.
Good to see you.
And you. Apologies for the late acceptance.
That's all right.
Day.
we haven't got long to speak, because the comedians have been pushed back time and time again, and they're going to form a union soon, and they'll start saying they're not going to work for me anymore. So what I was wondering is, how are you fitting into this new job where you can't go to work, I suppose, and you're doing it remotely, and what campaigns are the bakers doing at the moment?
If you'd have told me 6 months ago that I'd begin the role 2 months early in the middle of a pandemic, where the only form of contact with the members was Zoom and not face to face, I think I'd have laughed at you. It's really odd starting a role such as the General Secretary when you can't go into a branch and say hello to people and introduce yourself and talk to the members, especially being an activist at heart. But we're working our way through it. We've had our first Zoom executive council meeting today, which was a feat in itself to get through everybody being able to use the electronics, and we're making it work. I think our key things at the minute are campaign wise, and I'll just touch on it briefly, is the 100% campaign that we launched when Tim Martin decided he wasn't going to pay Wetherspoon's workers at all, and then U-turned after the support from the MPs and the public to give them 80%. But as we've mentioned earlier, 80% of minimum wage and precarious contractual hours and zero contractual hours is naffle, really, and losing at least a fifth of your wages is a massive drop to people that are only scraping by in the first place. So we know going forward, we're thankful for the extension to the furlough scheme to October, but we know that employers such as Tim Martin and Wetherspoons will be looking at ways to shirk their responsibilities of paying towards some of that come August, when the government have said employers need to bear some of the burden. And we know that that's going to be contractual hours cuts, reducing staff, and amongst other things. So we've got a big fight on our hands going forward. You know, these people deserve 100% and more than what they're getting now.
Well, you did well with the initial campaign where he had to backtrack on what he had there. So I reckon with the way the Bakers are, you're going to get this one as well. You're going to win this next one too, because I'm really impressed by what you've done. I mean, Baker's taking on McDonald's and, you know, massive corporations and coming out well. It's really great. And I'm sorry that you can't leave and meet your members, but it's great to see you. Can you come back again and we'll do a catch up another time?
That's all right.
I'm going to have to move on to the next section now, because the comedians have been pushed back so many times there. Like I say, this is the comedy. This is the comedy section of the show. Just in case you're wondering, this isn't all serious through the show. So some people think everything has to be serious. But anyway, look, we've got Jason Patterson here. Are you there?
Hey, what's up, Crispin? You all right, mate?
You stayed. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I had to go to work, man. Sorry. The conversation, the education conversation was really, it was interesting, and I had to duck out, but not a problem. Not a problem.
No, but what have you know, I appreciate you staying again to come on late, because I said you'd be on at 8 and it's nearly past or whatever.
Oh, no, that's fine. It's fine. I had to see him. I can't go without seeing you guys now, you know, so I'm hanging.
And how's lockdown in Battersea? Are people still going out and
You know what? Because of what's happened with, forget what Boris Johnson said, right? About Wednesday we're going to lighten the lockdown and all this. I was on the estate the other day, and I saw this guy walking through the estate, right? He had on a bra, a nappy, a pair of Timberland boots, and a Michael Jackson glitter glove. And I saw this guy walking through my estate, and I thought, finally things are getting back to normal in Southwest London. You know, that's the biggest sign I've seen that we're going to make it. If Ant-Man is walking around, we're all going to be fine. I've just got a few minutes. I don't want to take up any of the other comedians' time. I met a couple at a comedy show last year, right? Jamie and Helen, and they've always messaged me on Facebook. We've been talking over the lockdown, and they're getting, you know, Jamie proposed to Helen. They're engaged to be married. Jamie invited me on his stag party, right? And he wants to go out and get drunk. I've never understood the point of going out and getting wrecked on your stag party. The whole point is you're meant to do things on your stag do that you won't be able to do once you're married, right? Celebrate your freedom, whatever it is. I think for stag parties, if you want to do something that you can't do when you're married, I told Jamie to stay at home with his missus and try to win an argument. All right? Because in 20 years' time, that's something to look back on. Did you get drunk? No, I got her to agree with me. That's the best thing you could say in 20 years. I'm spreading a lot of love today. My uncle and auntie, they're celebrating their 53rd wedding anniversary in 2 weeks. 53 years of marriage. You don't hear of that anymore, right? And I was talking to my uncle on the phone. I said, Uncle, what would you say is the secret to 53 years of marriage? And my uncle said, you know what you have to do? You have to give each other space, right? Just because you're married doesn't mean you have to live in each other's pockets. Let your wife do her thing, you do your thing. So when you go out together, it's fresh. You've got something new to talk about, right? 53 years of marriage, give each other space. My uncle lives in Clapham, my auntie Barbados. So it works. I'm not sure about giving each other space in relationships. I tried that with my ex-girlfriend, you know. One night she wanted me to go out with her and her workmates, and I just weren't in the mood. You know, I said, you know, she said, babe, you want to come out with my friends? I said, babe, go out, enjoy yourself. She looked at me like, babe, what happens if a guy chats me up looking for sex? I said, well, you tell him the same thing you tell me. You're not in the mood. All right. So I'm all about love today, Crispin. I'm all about love. And one last thing, right? This is one last thing. I've seen a lot of couples putting up pictures of doing romantic things for each other on social media. You've seen a wife making breakfast in bed for her husband. You know, I saw a guy making his boyfriend lunch, and people are putting negative comments underneath. Now, all I want to say is this, right? If you don't have love in your life, stop hating on other people that do. Find the right adult website and literally learn to love yourself, okay? That is all I'm doing. I don't know if that's too early to say that one, but that's my time. I love all you guys. Stay healthy, and I'll see you Saturday.
All right, cheers, Jason. And we just heard Don's distinctive laugh. Are you there, Don?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
Have you enjoyed waiting to be on again?
Yeah, not too bad this time, not too long. I was listening to the renters debate, and I want to explain my housing situation. I'm 37 years old and I still live with my mum. Not cool, but hopefully one day she'll move out and find her own place. I've also got an underlying health condition, Crispin, which is the fact that I live with my overbearing Indian mother, age 37. But I'm here today to talk about austerity. This new Keir Starmer policy about rent is going to put more people in austerity. The government are going to put more people in austerity. It doesn't work. Did you know the latest Greek bailout deal imposed by the EU onto Greece means more austerity for the Greek people, even though in the past it's reduced that economy by 25%. But wasn't it Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results? Now, no one's laughing. But wasn't it Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results? I want to also talk about Boris Johnson's speech on Sunday night. It was very contradictory. Who wrote his speech? Mickey Flanagan? But he got out, but you can't get out. You can be busy, but you can't be double busy. And I live with my mum, but I'm still missing my other loved ones. I'm missing my sister and brother-in-law and their child. And the only way I can visit them tomorrow is if I phone up Foxtons and arrange a viewing at their house. I live with two more things. I am a left-wing comedian. I am an anti-establishment comedian, but really I'm not. Some of my heroes include Bill Hicks, and they're cool. I'm an outsider. I've got Asperger's, like most of my friends have got Asperger's and dyspraxia, and they've had their benefits cruelly taken away from the government. And do you know what I did during that time? I did a corporate gig for the Department of Work and Pensions. Don't judge me on that. People administer universal credit. But I turned up 6 weeks late just to see how they'll like it. And finally, I'll leave with this. I want to tell you about the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world post-coronavirus where we don't have to pay arrears and rent. I want to live in a world where poor people are taken seriously and the rich pay their fair share in taxes. We don't go to illegal wars in the Middle East. We have affordable council housing. We have affordable rent, and people are not plunged into debt. And in fact, if one person works on minimum wage, they can afford to support themselves and their whole family. By the way, Crispin, all of this has been said before. It's been said before. I'm just saying again, and hope that this time people will listen and do something about it. After all, wasn't it Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results? Thank you.
Nice one, Tom. Nice one. Now, we've got Patrick. Are you there, Pat? Yeah, you are, Patrick. How are you doing?
Yeah. Hello, Crispin. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You got a tan.
Have I?
Yeah, have you been out longer than, have you been celebrating this sort of alert time?
Do you know what it is, Crispin? Because I have taken advantage of it. I know that Boris did that alert thing on Sunday. Don and Jason, we've all talked about this. I've mentioned it really quickly because I didn't realise this, but I only found out today, you know, it's opened up all the parks non-stop, the golf courses are opened up, the tennis courts have opened up, and the angling. So I thought, oh, that'd be great, I'll get out. But I actually got chased off my local golf course because I turned up with loads of fishing bait and maggots. I was just sprinkling it all over the grass, and I was just throwing my fishing rod around because, you know, there's no water where I live. Like, I'm landlocked here in London. So I just thought, I'll go to the golf course. And then this was the problem, Crispin. Boris was saying about we've got to be alert. So I didn't know what alert was, how to stay alert. So I've made a guide, a step guide. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but you can use this. Everyone can use this. Step one to stay in alert most effectively is to keep moving. Do not get rigid. Do not get stationary. That is why I've got a tan, because I've been to the park 3,000 times every day since Sunday. That's 125 times an hour. So make sure you do that. The second thing in this step to alertness is eat lots of energy boosting snacks to stay alert. Do you know if you eat 48 packs of Cadbury's Boost chocolate bars, which I've been doing, and you can get them for £6 a pallet on eBay, or if you speak to me, I can do them for £5.50 off the back of my van. I'll be driving around the area, but stay 2 meters away. And a Boost, if you can't afford a Boost, it's literally just made of 54 grams of caffeine, 36 grams of glucose, 52 grams of car battery acid. It's dead easy. All you've got to do, it's dead easy. You just get 2 spoons of caffeine and you just mainline that. You just take that straight away, sugar and a salt lick, and that gets you going. Step 3, Crispin. Burn excess energy by staying alert, right? You've got to stay alert, and I do this by chasing squirrels. Step 4, right? Start conversations. You've got to start conversations with yourself to stay alert. I know there's lots of people that might be watching this. You might be on your own. Do what I do. Go to the park, start talking to yourself. People give you 2 meters distancing, so you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Everyone thinks you're a nutter. Step 5, you've got to keep sharp. To stay alert, you've got to keep sharp. You've got to do mathematics. You've got to start doing equations. So I do simple things like I try and work out how many kids Boris Johnson has got. I try and work out how many kids he'll have by 2030. So keep doing equations in your head. There's only a couple of steps left. Step 6, posture. Now, it's said to stay alert, you've got to have a good posture. You've got to always stay in an upright position. Because did you know this, Crispin? If you lay down, if people start laying down a lot, slouching, that's when the virus can attack you. That's when the COVID takes over your body, can kill you. So if you are dead, ask them to put your coffin standing up. That way you won't get the coronavirus even if you are dead. Step 7, this is the penultimate one. Be vigilant, Crispin. Be vigilant. And I didn't know what vigilant means, so I Googled it, and it said someone who goes and protects others like a vigilante. So I've got a cape, I put a V on my back, and I'm walking around to the park 125 times an hour to be vigilant. The very last thing, most importantly, to be alert, it says, do not sleep. So this is the most important thing. So what we've done, I don't know if you can do this, Crispin, and everyone else can do this, it's dead easy. We've got rid of our mattress, we've thrown that out, and we replaced it with a nylon trampoline net. So basically, every time we want to go to bed, it just brings us back up. So we're ready to go. Nothing stops someone sleeping better than a trampoline. And we're ready. As soon as Boris says we're ready to go, we're off our faces, we're coked up on glucose syrup, we're ready to get out there. So that is the 8 step. I'll email it to everyone if you want. If everyone puts their email on the chat, I'll send you the steps over.
That's phenomenal. You've done better than the government and maybe some of the opposition. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Crispin. I'm ready to take over.
Can you just get a fireplace or something you can sit in front of and do it more formal setting? A bit more formal.
I know
exactly.
Time.
Get a desk and a fireplace and sit and tell us that way. I'm going to move on now because thank you for staying as well, Patrick.
No,
move on now to Boris on the bog. Are you there, Boris?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Crispin. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Yes, I seem to be slightly in slow motion tonight, slightly sort of behind myself. But can I just thank Patrick for that advice on alertness? I'll give you some more advice on that on Saturday. But
thank you.
Yes, please email me, Patrick, with that wonderful trampolining, cook up the nose stuff. Right, okay. It's not been a good week, Crispin, for me. People have been criticizing my lack of clarity. So last night I thought in a state of depression, which is unusual for me, I went for a walk around the block. And this very attractive young woman came up to me and said, hiya, Boris, I'll do anything you want for a tenner. So I said, okay, give me a haircut. Why not? I mean, yes, that's the sort of mood I was in, folks. Yeah? So, okay, I mean, this COVID thing, briefly on that. You know, I likened it to a mugger, but with a British mugger. You're walking along there, and the British mugger comes up to you in the dark, boshes you over the head, takes your wallet. But this continental one, you see it coming for 3 months, and it's dancing and singing down the street, shaking hands with people. What a jolly fellow it is! And then all of a sudden, bosh, it gets you as well. So I have to say, folks, heaven knows I'm miserable now. Borisy. Okay, on that very low note, I'll let you move on because time's getting on, and I'm still going to scribble down some notes from Patrick's ingredients. So thank you, Crispin. Thank you, folks.
Oh, thank you, Boris. Good luck with your notes. And now we've got Suzy there.
I'm here.
Thank you for staying.
That's okay. I loved the Borisy comment. I expect Boris on the bog to be holding some gladioli next time and waving it about like Morrissey used to. It's not a long wait this time. This is good because the other day it was ages. I was getting a bit worried because I've got tickets for Jason Donovan in October booked. So I'm glad I'm all right. I've missed Coronation Street, but I can watch that in a minute. We'll be all right. I haven't started my diet yet.
No?
No, it's just not happening. But today on my favourite daytime TV programme, they were doing facial exercises. Did you know this was a thing? Where you can work on your face muscles. But I do that every day anyway. It's called chewing. So I didn't need to take that on board. What else have I been doing? Apparently we can start swimming in the sea soon. Did you know this?
No.
Because I was missing my swimming, but we're allowed to go and swim in the sea now, which may mean that I might have to break my vow of not shaving my armpits until Cineworld reopens, because there is a body hair issue. So if I do go swimming, but coincidentally the garden centres are open, so I will be able to get hold of some kind of strimmer. So that'll be all right. That's a coincidence. Yeah, I've just been sitting around on social media. Nothing's really changed. I've been getting a bit anxious about the Facebook stuff though, because I feel like people nominating me to name my top 10 albums is a bit, you know, when they tag you in it and you go, oh God, it's the same kind of feeling as an unsolicited FaceTime call. I'm just not ready for it. I just kind of go, oh no, do I have to join in? But you know, the other day I was looking through my old box of memories and I had my red coat. Do you remember you rudely interrupted my agadoo, Crispin?
Yeah, I just have a problem with that.
I found some other things. I thought you might find this interesting because I do keep going on about being a yo-yo dieter, right? And I've got proof. This is something I did. And this was 2008. I was on this TV show and it was a weight loss thing. And I had to dress like a Victorian and have a Victorian diet. And this rather unflattering picture here is me. And I'm wearing 2 jumpers and looking a bit miserable. And the next one, I've had a makeover and I'm wearing better clothes. So this is what's happened. But on the side, there's a little sidebar here. And what they did was they interviewed me on the phone and they said, what was your diet like before we went on this diet? And they said, what kind of things would you eat that you shouldn't really eat? And I listed off all these things like pies, KFC, bacon, sandwiches, cider, kebabs. And what they've actually done is put it as my daily menu. So what they said is breakfast, bacon sandwich, chips, snacks, chocolate and cake, dinner, KFC meal with 2 pints of cider. Don't even sell cider in KFC. I know because I campaign for it. Kebab on the way home. So they came down a kebab on the way home, which I mean is a brilliant idea, but it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? But I'll leave you on this though, because I've got more show and tell. Because I don't know if you've missed. I've had a few messages about my Colombo pants. For those of you who haven't seen that, it's my Colombo pants. But when I was looking through my box of memories the other day, I found these. Now these are very special. These pants. I wore these as a comedy sketch for a charity thing we did at a local hospital, and a very, very famous man signed these pants. Can I just say these are not my usual type of pants, but it was a comedy sketch I was doing. Can you see who signed that? Yes, and he was a big Labour supporter in the 70s. It's Edward Woodward.
Wow.
So he was one of the patrons of the hospital, Derriford Hospital in Plymouth, and he was at this charity do. And I jokingly said to him, do you want to sign my knickers? And he went, go on then. And he got this marker out. And the pants are so massive, he put his entire name across. Suzy, love from Edward Woodward. So I treasure these, actually. I probably should get some kind of glass cabinet for them. But how cool is that?
That's really cool. He's a good actor, wasn't he?
Oh, he was brilliant. I loved him. And one of his most famous roles was in the Wicker Man, where he said the famous line, "Oh God, oh Jesus Christ," and that's exactly what he said when I showed him my knickers. It's been lovely to talk to you. I've got to go and have me. Oh, can I just say something really, really amazing happened? My neighbour today washed my mum's car for her. How nice is that?
Oh, that's nice.
People is being so nice. His wife knocked on the door and said, "Oh, do you want John to wash the car?" And I was like, "Oh, that's so nice." And then I felt a bit guilty for always putting the gin bottles in their recycling. So got to stop doing that now. But anyway, I'll see you soon. Everybody, take care of yourselves.
Oh, thank you, Suzy. Good. See you later. See you on Saturday.
I'll be there.
And now we've come to the part of the show where we introduce Rob. Are you there? Where's Rob? Rob's there. Rob.
Hello. Yes, I'm here. Hello.
You're still there. Thank you for holding on. I'm going to play.
No, it's a treat. It's just a treat. What a great night.
I'm going to play you a song that you've recorded specially for the show. And apparently, the original recording has the 4-letter word in it, and you've actually taken that word out, especially for the show. It wasn't necessary. I would have been quite happy to have heard the 4-letter word. It's past the curfew time, whatever it is.
I was just so moved by the need to express how passionately and emotional I felt about victory in Europe, the great triumph that Boris Johnson has achieved. Britain having great in Europe.
So we're going to hear your song "Victory in Europe," and it's about Boris Johnson's
victory in Europe,
waving the flag, and
yeah.
So I'll play the song now. Okay.
First our care homes were expendable, our pensioners could die, our bus drivers were expendable. There's not a reason why. There had been no preparation, no plan, no PPE. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. First they stopped making the front page, then they stopped making the news. Once the dead become expendable, they get easier to lose. Those who never counted, easy to ignore. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. This is victory in Europe. This is victory in Europe. But don't forget your flags and bunting. Don't forget to wash your hands. Your nurses are expendable, but I'm sure you'll understand. Stockpiles are too expensive. It's our money tree, not yours. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. Now our children are expendable. The economy comes first. Key workers are expendable. The poor always die first. There will be no preparation, no plan, no PPE. But you can always have more children. Have more children. This is victory in Europe. 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 First our care homes were expendable. Now our children are expendable. This is victory in Europe. The highest rate of death in Europe. Don't forget your flags and bunting. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared. 40,000 smiling faces. 40,000 smiling faces. 40,000 smiling faces disappeared.
Rob, you seem to be getting angrier in lockdown. I noticed your songs at the start were quite reflective, and now you seem to be pretty angry.
I sometimes you just can't help it. I mean, the fact that we have the highest death rate in Europe, and that's just gets glossed over because Boris is going to let us go out for walkies with his 3 new things. Be alert. That was great, Patrick. And we got to control the virus. What do we fucking do to it? Say sit, beg, roll over, poke it with? I mean, like, so it's out, it's just be like a banking crisis. If it goes wrong, which it is once the children go back to school and they start spreading it to teachers and families, and the rate goes up again, it will be our fault. I sometimes you just can't help but be angry, because we should be ashamed that we got the highest, what's it, 5th richest country on the planet, and we got the 2nd highest death rate on the planet as well, second only to the USA. And the media just goes, oh, we're going to be let out for walkies. And Boris sidetracks with another stupid get bollocks done slogan. Sorry.
I think it is quite. There's all kinds of emotions come up with this stuff, but it's definitely strange to see this victory in Europe thing on the context of it, as you put in the song. It just seems bizarre that we're celebrating something while, as you say, 50,000 people have died, or it's terrible. But we tried to end these shows on a high, with a nice high bit. But I have to say, it's been quite nice to hear you swearing a couple of times there. Does it help you to let it out a bit?
Yes, it does. It's what we normally say, isn't it? I think as a songwriter, you have to use the language that people use, and it always amuses me. People say, "Oh my God, he said fuck in a song." Ooh.
All right. Well, I'll beat that one out as well later.
All right. Yeah.
What I wanted to say before you go, I just wanted to say we've got another Clash of the CLPs coming up on Saturday, and we've got Liverpool, Wavertree, and Windsor against each other, and that's going to be a fantastic contest. I know Liverpool, Wavertree think they've got it in the bag, but Windsor have apparently got a mastermind champion playing for them. Liverpool, Wavertree might have a Labour Heroes expert though, so you never know what's going to happen there. Tune into that on Saturday. And now, again, we're late again, but I suppose we had a lot to cover today. We're going to do our last half a minute of saying hello and goodbye to everyone. And last time we did it, Rebecca Long Bailey started to emerge from somewhere, and everyone was singing "Oh, Rebecca Long Bailey" at the end. So let's see what comes out of all this. So I'm going to unmute everyone, and let's see who is being sung at the end of this.
John McDonnell, Johnny
Fantastic song, Robb Johnson. Fantastic song.
Lewis. Johnny McDonnell, smiling faces disappear.
Know where you're getting from the anger.
John McDonnell, bring back Jerry Corbyn. John McDonnell, John Biswas. Smiling faces.
Smiling faces.
Which Labour Party? Hello, Friday.
Crispin, brilliant as
Crispin,
ever.
good work.
It's a good show.
20,000 smiling faces disappear. 20,000 smiling faces disappear. 40,000 smiling faces disappear. 40,000 smiling faces.
No, the hell out of that.
It's crazy. Crispin. John McDonnell. John McDonnell.
I didn't mean that. I was just asking if that was the case. Yeah, I know you were asking.